Welcome back to the Hard Truth Canada. Pierre Poilievre just roasted Mark Carney's new cabinet, and honestly, it was way too easy. Carney promises change. Instead, we get recycled cast of political has-beens and policy disasters.
They view that as evidence of something. They view that, pardon me, as evidence of something that runs counter to what you're saying right now.
What I've said very clear. Look, I am.
You've got Stephen Guilbeault, now Canada's Minister of Identity, because nothing says identity like shutting down pipelines and hugging windmills.
I think we will have to agree to disagree with Premier Smith. We think that protecting the environment, fighting climate change is important. Lots of Canadians believe that as well.
Sean Fraser, the guy who helped blow up the housing market, now promoted to finance minister? Because in politics, failure is apparently a resume booster.
Do you not have a point though with immigration getting out of control under your watch, and with housing prices still going up under your watch?
Well,
do you not have a point?
Let's look at.
And for housing advice, guess who he went to? Mark Carney dug out Gregor Robertson, the ghost of Vancouver's real estate apocalypse.
Mr. Robertson, housing prices in Vancouver went up while you were mayor. I want to ask you, why do you feel like you have the skills necessary to do this when you saw a 179% increase in Vancouver housing prices?
Yeah, we've seen increases like that across Canada over the past decade.
If you've got political deja vu, hit like. Subscribe if you're here for the truth with zero corporate sugarcoating. And drop a comment below. Who's the biggest clown in Mark Carney's cabinet today? Maybe it's Mark Carney himself. Maybe it's Stephen Guilbeault. Let me know down below on what you think. Meanwhile, Pierre Poilievre is standing here like, cool, so we're doing this all over again, huh?
Is Stephen Guilbeault a threat to national unity in his current role as Minister of National Identity and Quebec Lieutenant?
Yes, he is. Absolutely. I mean, I just find it astonishing that Mr. Carney would appoint a man who says we don't need any pipelines built.
Before we start talking about building an entire new pipeline, maybe we should maximize the use of existing infrastructure.
They want to know where conventional energy fits into your ambitions. And it's not just because, if I may, not just because of the record of the previous government, it's because of you yourself, your book Values, for example, which extensively talks about a reorientation of the market around the climate imperative. I think Canadians had been asking throughout the campaign, and now, like, is this Prime Minister Mark Carney of values, or is it the Prime Minister of the campaign? Like, are you going to build that pipeline if the consensus exists?
First off, I've said repeatedly yes, first point. Secondly, that because I understand the need for that consensus, I'm a Prime Minister who can help create that consensus. You can't create a consensus on your own, but you have to drive processes that bring provinces along, bring the private sector in. Remember, I've got extensive experience. This is not just a concept to me.
Gregor Smith says that she's still concerned that you're part of cabinet, and also the new selection of Mr. Buzyn for the environment minister. She says it's too close of a tie to you. What do you say in response to that?
I think we will have to agree to disagree with Premier Smith. We think that protecting the environment, fighting climate change is important. Lots of Canadians believe that as well. It was a central element of our platform, and we will make good on our commitments.
The Prime Minister last night on TV seemed to open the door to potentially changing the emissions cap or the IAA to get projects built. What do you think of what he said?
Well, these are important conversations that we will need to have in the coming weeks.
Premier Smith is saying that you're anti-pipeline still. What do you say in response to her concerns just broadly about the cabinet, and how do you deal with national unity? How do you address that right now?
So on pipelines, people should remember that we bought a pipeline, Trans Mountain, and that is only used right now about 40% capacity. So I think before we start talking about building an entire new pipeline, maybe we should maximize the use of existing infrastructure. And the Canadian Energy Regulator, as well as the International Energy Agency, are telling us that probably by 2028, 2029, demand for oil will peak globally, and it will also peak in Canada. So as far as I know, there are no investors right now. There are no companies that are saying that they want to build an east-west pipeline. And as you know, these things are built by companies, not governments.
Stephen Guilbeault, now moonlighting as Canada's identity czar? is still crying about pipelines like it's 2015. He says we're only using 40% capacity. Meanwhile, Alberta is screaming, "Hey, buddy, we're freaking full."
Still saying you're going to keep C69 in place. You're going to keep the emissions cap in place. They view that as evidence of something. They view that, pardon me, as evidence of something that runs counter to what you're saying right now.
What I've said very clear. Look, I am a pragmatist. I go over and over on this, and I really am. I'm interested in results. So the point of building a pipeline, the point of building out carbon capture is to get the results, to get get those barrels to the market, to get carbon down. You can do both. We have the capability to do more. And we have the capabilities financially, from a technological perspective, in terms of the companies. Federal government can play a role. The province of Alberta, obviously other provinces, Indigenous people have to come along for almost all of these projects in order to...
Carney says we need to unleash Canada's superpower. Awesome. Pipelines, energy, resources? No, turns out our superpower is just a gridlock and Twitter policies.
And what I'm putting on the table is, okay, let's go. Let's not talk about this. Let's roll up our sleeves. Let's focus in on specific projects and let's work on them together. Now, very constructive, sorry if I may, constructive conversations with Premier Moe in this vein, also with Premier Smith in this vein. So the next stage of that is to sit down across premiers and other groups and start to refine that list and move forward. And we will change things at the federal level that need to be changed in order for projects to move forward.
Does that include C69 or the emissions cap?
It could include both. Yeah, absolutely could include both. But I'm not going to do it conceptually. I'm going to do it on specifics.
But he won't touch Bill C69, the project killer, economy choking, liberal gift that keeps on giving. That's like saying you want to feed the country but refuse to allow farming. Superpower, you say? Try super gaslighting.
The Liberals went around the country pretending they had changed their minds about pipelines after 10 years of blocking them. But now one of Mr. Carney's top ministers comes out and says we don't need any more pipelines, and that he would work to block those pipelines. He wants to block road construction. He's against nuclear power. He's against all forms of economic development. And that will be bad for the entire country, to be clear, but especially antagonistic to the resource-producing provinces like Saskatchewan and Alberta, who rightly feel that they have been mistreated by this lost Liberal decade. So what we see, we have Mr. Guilbeault, who wants to block resource development. We have Sean Fraser, who created the immigration crisis and then the housing crisis.
Now, let's talk about Fraser, a man so allergic to accountability, he should come with an EpiPen. When asked about his housing record, this man actually said, "I told the government we were in a crisis." That is his defense. He lit the fire, rang the doorbell, and ran off.
It's fascinating. He spends an awful lot of time on me, and one of the things that I heard loud and clear in my constituency over the course of the election campaign that we've just come through is one of the reasons that people were just not comfortable with Mr. Poilievre as a potential Prime Minister is he spends so much of his energy slinging mud against his opponents rather than proposing ideas that are actually going to help families who live in communities like mine. I'm going to focus on the work that we get to do, not what my opponents may have to say to pursue their own political
advantage.
Does
he not have a point, though, with immigration getting out of control under your watch, and with housing prices still going up under your watch?
Well,
does he not have a point?
Let's look at what actually took place on the housing portfolio. On the very first committee appearance I made, I openly acknowledged that we had been living through a housing crisis, and we got to work to launch the largest suite of housing reforms that we've seen in over half a century. My colleagues from all parties, including the Conservative parties, actually voted me to be the most effective minister and best parliamentarian in the House. So from my perspective, it's clearly motivated by some axe he has to grind against me personally, but it really doesn't bother me too much. He's made his entire career out of a habit of slinging mud against his opponents. I hope to build my career on doing work that's going to help my community.
Let's not forget, he was also the immigration and housing minister, and somehow managed to build fewer homes than a Minecraft speedrunner And now he's finance minister? Perfect. What's next? Minister of apologies? Even the reporters are like, wait, isn't Pierre Poilievre correct? Yes. Yes, indeed. Pierre Poilievre was correct.
A new housing minister yesterday who says he doesn't want housing costs to go down. Presumably he wants them to go up, like they did when he nearly tripled them as mayor of Vancouver.
Gregor Robertson, the political version of let's try the guy who's failed last time. Housing in Vancouver more than doubled under his watch. His excuses? The federal government didn't help me. Dude, you had a decade and a budget. You were the mayor of Vancouver, not a freaking Starbucks barista waiting on a manager.
Delivering that. No, I think that we need to deliver more supply, make sure the market is stable. It's a huge part of our economy. We need to be delivering more affordable housing. And the government of Canada has not been building affordable housing since the 90s, and we've created a huge shortage across Canada. That's where the big need is right now, and I'm very encouraged that the Prime Minister and our commitment right now in government is to double construction and focus on the affordable side.
How realistic do you think those pledges are to double construction?
It's very ambitious. It's going to take us years to really scale up. We're going to have to leverage Canadian technology with off-site manufacturing. We got a lot of work to do on this, and it doesn't happen overnight. Housing is a slow-moving creature, and we got to do everything we can to speed it up. Okay, thanks.
Housing prices in Vancouver went up while you were mayor. I want to ask you, why do you feel like you have the skills necessary to do this when you saw a 179% increase in Vancouver housing prices?
Yeah, we've seen increases like that across Canada over the past decade. Certainly since my time as mayor, we've seen a lot more movement here in Ottawa, and we've got great programs starting to work now. Housing Accelerator program is partnering with cities to deliver. I'm here to leverage my history as a mayor. I know what works on the ground. I wasn't getting the help I needed from the federal government when I was mayor, or the provincial government of all stripes. We need, as a government in Ottawa, to be delivering and partnering with cities and provinces all together, and making sure we're building enough supply, and that the federal government is focused on affordable housing and delivering that.
Now he's back saying he's here to share his experience. Experience in what? Turning cities into investment portfolios? This man made Vancouver unaffordable and somehow got a promotion. That's government logic for you.
So what we're seeing is that in the last 48 hours of this Liberal government is looking a lot like the last 10 years of the Liberal government. What we need is a real change, a change so that we can bring home the country that we knew and loved, so that anyone who works hard gets a powerful paycheck, they can live in a nice, affordable home on a safe street, and we as Conservatives will work with anyone to bring home that Canada. Thank you very much. Thank you.
But Pierre Poilievre took one look at this cabinet and said, the last few days look exactly like the last 10 years. Is he wrong? What do you think? I don't think he's wrong. The same slogans, the same faces, the same finger pointing, but Mark Carney won't repeal Bill C-69. Fraser's blaming ghosts. Guilbeault is busy defining Canadians' identity using the bike lane. And Gregory, he's still pretending rent didn't triple on his watch. Meanwhile, Pierre Poilievre is there with a pen, a brain, and a memory. He's not playing pretend. He's pulling out the receipts. And he says, I'll work with you if only it actually helps Canadians. Wild concept, eh?
Hard work that we have to do as parliamentarians to protect our economy, and that takes a plan. A plan to reverse the Liberal housing crisis, a plan to reverse the Liberal inflation crisis, a plan to reverse the Liberal jobs and economic growth crisis, a plan to stand up against American tariffs. And that plan always comes in the form of a budget. A budget determines and informs Canadians of the size of the debt and the deficit, of the future interest rate and inflation costs, of the tax policies that determine whether companies hire or fire employees, of the laws that allow us to or block us from building major infrastructure projects that will create jobs and make us more independent from the Americans who are threatening us with tariffs. Now, Mr. Carney said during the election campaign that he had a plan, and he took great delight in saying that a slogan is not a plan.
The one thing I've learned over the many years of managing crises is that plan beats no plan. Plans create focus, discipline, and the energy that major changes a crisis demands. And make no mistake, we are in a crisis. Pierre Poilievre's slogans are not solutions. His anger is in action. His division is in strength.
Well, a budget is a plan. And if he does indeed have a plan, if he does know what he's doing, then he would introduce a budget so that Canadians know exactly what the finances are. We were very disappointed yesterday to hear that he has no budget plan for this year. This makes it the longest period without a budget since the 60s, the first time there has not been a budget outside of COVID in over 20 years. Extremely unusual. It'll send a bad signal to investors and ratings agencies, and a lot of people will wonder what the Liberal government is hiding about our finances.
A new warning from the head of Canada's biggest grocery chain that the food in your cart, the prices of that soon going to be rising. And the reason is Donald Trump's tariffs are really starting to take effect, starting to take a bite. So Scott is here with what the CEO of Loblaw is now saying.
Yeah, saying that like a lot of companies, grocery companies in particular, they loaded up on inventory with the threat, the fear of what the tariffs would bring, and that inventory now is becoming depleted. They're going to have to go to the open market and hence paying more for all the items, and because of that, they're going to pass that along to us within the next couple of weeks.
And so we're here with solutions. I'm proposing offering the Prime Minister to sit down with him and propose conservative solutions that we hope that he will steal. I want him to steal our best ideas. That includes cutting the bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, and other wasteful spending to bring down deficits, inflation, and taxes. We want a real income tax cut that rewards hard work, axe the federal sales tax on new homes to promote more building and lower costs, and stand up against American tariffs with lower taxes on Canadian investment and by repealing all of the anti-energy policies like C-69, C-48, the energy cap, the electric vehicle mandate, and unleashing our resources so that we can become the richest country in the world. Now, these are ideas that Conservatives are putting forward, but I'm happy to bring them right to the Prime Minister's desk and invite him to steal them and put them right in his platform. And if he does, then we will help get those passed before Canada Day. So let's work together, let's have a real plan, a real budget, and let's bring it home. Thank you very much.
So let's recap. Carney says he's pro-pipeline, but keeps the bill that kills them. Guilbeault says we don't need any new pipelines while Alberta's about to explode. Fraser blames the system that he was running. And Gregory, he's a human version of this is fine with the fire behind him. This isn't a fresh start, folks. It's a rebranding train wreck. New name, same disaster. Before we end this off, I'd like to give a big shout out to all of you who like, comment, and share, and laugh throughout this nonsense with me. You are the reason the Hard Truth Canada is growing and getting louder. Whether you are new here or you've been here since the very first political post that I've made, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. This is the Hard Truth Canada. Subscribe if you haven't already, and tell me in the comments who's the worst pick in Carney's cabinet.